ruling All Progressives Congress, APC, claimed a decisive win in weekend's by-elections held in 16 constituencies across 12 states of the Federation, emerging victorious in 12 constituencies. All Progressives Grand Alliance, APGA, won 2 constituencies, while People's Democratic Party, PDP, and New Nigeria People's Party, NNPP, gained the upper hand in 1 constituency each, in poll outcomes that were roundly rejected by the opposition parties. President Bola Tinubu rejoiced with all the winners, just as APC described the triumph of its candidates as an endorsement of the Tinubu administration. But African Democratic Congress, ADC, Labour Party, LP, and PDP condemned the exercise. Tinubu, in a statement by his advisor on information and strategy, Bayo Ononuga, commended INEC for hitch-free elections, mostly devoid of violence. The Department of State Services, DSS, has received accolades over its recent exploits in securing Nigeria, especially the arrest of key terror group leaders in the country. In a sting operation with other agencies coordinated by the National Security Advisor, Nuhu Ribadu, major kingpins picked up in recent times through an improved coordination of Nigeria's security intelligence apparatchik include 1. Abubakar Abba, leader of the dreaded Mahmuda terror group, Mahmoud Mohammed Usman, also known as Abu Bara, the self-proclaimed emir of Ansaru, and Mahmoud al-Nigeri, known as Malam Mahmuda, who served as his chief of staff. Aside from Niger State Governor Mohamed Bago, who extended the applause to President Bola Tinubu over breakthroughs in the arrest of terror kingpins by the Oluwatosin Ajayi-led secret police, some youths under the Northern Ethnic Youth Group Assembly, NEGA, as well as the Muslim Rights Concern, also praised the DSS. Analysts have hailed the improved intelligence gathering by the DSS and the leadership of the NSA, which has helped to put the terror groups on the back foot. Moving on to another story, the Minister of Education, Dr. Olatunji Alausa, has declared that Nigeria is making a decisive leap into digital education as part of the federal government's sweeping reforms aimed at modernizing the country's learning environment and preparing young Nigerians for global competitiveness. Speaking at a media parley in Abuja, Alausa explained that the integration of technology into education is no longer optional, but essential for Nigeria's future. He stressed that the reforms currently underway place digital transformation at the heart of the sector, with initiatives designed to enhance lesson delivery, expand access, and empower both teachers and students. According to him, the ministry has begun rolling out solar-powered infrastructure in schools to ensure reliable electricity, while teachers are being equipped with tablets and trained in digital skills. Local technology firms, he noted, are also being engaged to develop AI-driven learning platforms, e-libraries, and interactive tools to support the reforms. All right, Rufai, a great way, or interesting way to start the week. In terms of the elections that took place over the weekend, a number of people have different perspectives in terms of the outcome. As I'd mentioned earlier, some people have praised this, the success of the APC in different elections, saying that it's a testament to President Tinubu's tenure. And then, of course, going on to the DSS wins in terms of fight against terrorism and technology and education. Your take on these stories?
So first, kudos to the DSS. In fact, I must have to say, Mr. Tosin Ajayi-led DSS has done a lot of good work that we should commend. And I'm saying this because Tosin Ajayi himself is, I think, one of the few people that rose up the ranks. He had been an officer from the cadet level many years ago, over 20 years ago, or even up to 30 years ago, rising up the ranks, knowing the nitty-gritty, slaved for the DSS before he got to the top. And when you have people like that come from the system, there's an edge they bring, the edge of professionalism. And you can see that in Tosin Ajayi. You see, you remember how a lot of people used to complain about, DSS position in the media and all of that, how they used to be very visible in the media with all. These days, you only see DSS in the media when they do their work. It's not banter here and there. Tosin is sharp, is precise, he gets what he wants to do, he gets it done. You can hardly hear that you're hearing all sorts of statements in the public. And that's the kind of DSS we want. Very professional. But we need them to do more. It's the more part. And he knows that he needs to do more. The NSA knows that they need to do more. Until we rid this country of a great deal of insecurity, we are not there yet. And insecurity still baffles all of us. There's still killings here and there. There's still activities of these criminal elements. But there is no steady ship to run the DSS at a time like this, like Tosin. And that's the kind of skill and expertise he brings to the force. So kudos. I'm not surprised that people are giving him kudos. We are also giving him kudos today. When he doesn't also do well, we give him knocks. Because kudos and knocks, lolaye, that's the essence of life. But today is the kudos day. And we also support, our military, police, and other security apparatus. As regards elections, were these by-elections or by-elections?
So B-Y.
B-U-Y. Because all I saw during this by-election was vote for sale. Who is the highest bidder? The highest bidder in some cases with coercive force of states now celebrate that they are triumphant. So people that bought elections in the by-elections celebrate that they won elections that they bought. I weep for Nigeria. These by-elections also, people that claim that they have political power, that they've come together, now see that politics is local and they are crying. So it's a tale of two cities, but it's a sad tale for Nigeria. Because, like Tiponel will famously say, politics is local. But because politics is local does not mean people should be buying elections. Look at the person that was caught from a certain political party with over 29 million. Look at officials that were caught with over 2 million. So while we are celebrating, we should also look at how of a joke the democracy has been. So maybe in 2027, maybe people should go and just put money. Because you see, Nigerian politics has now become a case that it is the best money that wins. Money, efforts, thugs, buying everybody. Once you can do that, you get your way. Buy everybody possible. There's nobody that money doesn't buy in this country in the grand scheme of elections. For the winners, what did you win? You bought it with money. Was it truly the reflective hope and aspiration people did have in you? Or it was because of your money? Why not we build a society that it is based on your works? People will vote for it. I know people that days before the election, they did road. The road that they didn't do all this while. If you see the way they completed the road, even if the road is Amolumala Road, they completed it.
Maybe we should have elections more often.
Oh my goodness. They completed road in a speed to be able to beg. So, this is a signpost. But kudos to the APC. They got 12 out of the seats. Okpebolo got a trouncing win over other parties. The senatorial candidate, the pair that was vying for his own seat, they did well. He still maintained his stability there because that was a point to prove for him. Seyi Makinde held his own angle. In fact, some people are now using that to say they tip Seyi Makinde that maybe he's the new kid. No, LA politics is local. He also wanted to use to prove a point. APC swept 12. APGA, Soludo too held his own turf with APGA. They consolidated. ADC, we didn't see anything from ADC. So it's quick now. We have to start asking questions from the ADC. The coalition people are coalitioning. What's happening? What's happening? By election, you have to show yourself. We didn't see anything. No.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, many years ago, after the return to civilian democracy in 1999, we used to use such expressions as, oh, the Nigerian democracy is putative. The Nigerian democracy is inchoate. And the expectation then was that the democratic process will grow, lessons will be learned, and there will be better consolidation in terms of the democratic process in Nigeria. But unfortunately, years later, 1999 to 2025, what we are seeing is that the professional political class has refused to learn its lessons. What we are seeing, too, is that the institutions of state continue to fail the people and the country. Hence, the democratic process in Nigeria, you can still say, is still in a developmental state because the right lessons have not been learned, the right improvements have not occurred, despite several revisions of the Electoral Act, the Enabling Electoral Act. You can count up to about 10 revisions of the Electoral Act since 1999. Now, that said, the second thing is that the most recent election was the 2023 general election, at the end of which the conversation was again about electoral reform. And commentators on the subject have already identified areas of improvement, either in terms of performance of the electoral umpire, or in terms of the attitude of the political parties, or in terms of punishment for electoral offenders and reducing the degree of infractions. Now, after that 2023 election, we have now had by-elections in 16 constituencies in 12 states, by-elections conditioned, ordered, enabled by deaths, resignations, court-ordered reruns. And what have we seen? What did we see over the weekend? Just 16 constituencies in 12 states. The same old problem, reinforcing the fact that lessons have not been learned, that the political class has not changed its color, and that institutions continue to fail. How did the institution fail? Beavers in Edo State. Beavers did not work in Edo State. Still, despite the fact that this was just a small-scale election, election materials arrived late in certain places. 2, you had vote buying. In Ikperu, Remo, a certain Mitsubishi van was intercepted containing about 2.5 million naira, in cash that some persons who said they collected the money from a man called Political Solution were going to give to the electorate at the polling booths. Now, what is the political solution? Cash, vote buying. In Ogun, Kano, and one other state, a total of 288 thugs were arrested. Those thugs, what will be their main trade? It will be violence. In 2 constituencies in Kano State, the PDP and other political parties have requested for the cancellation of the elections in those constituencies by INEC. In other words, just to speak broadly, in Enugu State, in one polling booth, a serving minister of state was booed by the electorate who were wondering what he was doing at the polling booth, trying to influence the process. So that's that about, general trends and behavior. And that is why I think that these by-elections will have to remind us that INEC still has to do a lot more. And the imperative of electoral reform is non-negotiable. We need to take a second look at it, and we have to take it more seriously. And that reform must not come 2-3 weeks to the election. It must come. We could have had the opportunity to test some of those reforms. This beavers never works. It didn't work in 2019. It failed us in 2023. Is it going to fail us again in 2027? With all the protestations by the electoral umpire that they have digitalized and modernized their operations. We do not see that evidence. This by-election over the weekend is a poor comment on the growth of the electoral process in Nigeria. However, the presidency, speaking through Mr. Bayo Ononuga, says it was violence-free. Beavers not working, vote buying, attempts by talks, and all of the efforts by politicians to manipulate the process. That in itself is a form of violence. Students of violence, of the theory of violence, will know that it's not only when you carry hammer and machete that you are engaged in violence. There are levels of violence. I don't want to theorize on that this morning because it's not relevant to the immediate discussion. As for DSS, now, over the weekend, I think on Friday, the National Security Advisor had a press conference in Abuja where he drew attention to the success of the collaboration among the intelligence apparatchik of Nigeria, and how the intelligence apparatchik of Nigeria has been able to arrest some key kingpins responsible for terrorism and insurgency in Nigeria. And it was in that process that the DSS the Department of State Services was singled out. The Department of State Services was said to have helped to arrest Mahmouda, right? Is it the Mahmouda? The Mahmouda, as a result of investigation. The head of the Mahmouda terrorist group, terrorizing Niger State and parts of Kogi State. And so excited was the governor of Niger State, Farmer Bago, that he had to single out Mr. Oluwatosin Ajayi, the DSS Director General, for special praise, saying that, look, what DSS has been able to do, brings great relief to the people of Niger State in particular, who have been, terrorized by this Mahmouda group, and now one of their kingpins has been arrested. There was also reference to the Ansaru terrorist organization. If a certain fellow who calls himself Amir Ansaru, having been, also arrested, along with his chief of staff, a certain Mahmouda, and, this in itself is a major success for the intelligence agencies. And the role played by the DSS was acknowledged, not just by the governor of Niger State, but also by the Northern Ethnic Youth Assembly and also the Muslim Rights Concern. It's not always that you find civil society groups in Nigeria praising the government intelligence agency. And this is why this is remarkable, that you find almost 3 groups saying, oh, thank you, DSS, for arresting these people. And I think that, this is enhancing against the background of our persistent demand that, look, these agencies need to do more, that the government needs to do more. So this is a major achievement for the security structure in Nigeria. And we should commend both the NSA, Nuhu Ribadu, and also commend the DSS, that's Mr. Oluwatosin Ajayi, and his team. And then add this caveat. And the caveat is as follows. Now, in the past, in this same country, persons who have been arrested involved in insurgency and terrorism, they have escaped in the past. I don't want to single out any administration. These ones that have been arrested, who have been called kingpins, linked to Al-Qaeda, they must not escape from custody. President Tinubu must make sure that there is no escape and that we should not hear anything about they have repented, there is a rehabilitation. No, there's no rehabilitation. They must be made to face the full wrath of the law, because when you take a full account of the damage that they have caused, these are saboteurs, these are enemies of the state, and they must be made to answer for their impunity. Finally, Minister Alausa, Tunji Alausa, the Minister of Education, having a media parley over the weekend, saying that, look, Nigeria is now going to focus on digital education, smart learning, innovation, in order to increase productivity and make the products of Nigerian schools competitive. I think this is a welcome development. It's not enough to just talk about it. He also talked about, synthesizing the curriculum of WAEC and also JAM. JAM has 76 subjects. WAEC has, I think, about 80 subjects. Well, as for WAEC, I hope he realizes that WAEC, West African Examinations Council, from the very title, is a regional organization. Yeah. There are other countries involved: Gambia, Ghana, Sierra Leone, Nigeria. So there must be collaboration at that level. As for technology and innovation, this becomes very instructive against the background of the decision by the federal government of Nigeria to ban the establishment of additional federal universities, polytechnics, and monotechnics for a period of 7 years. In other words, they've placed a moratorium of 7 years. And the argument in discussing that has been, okay, if you place this moratorium, what then do you do? One of the options that has been identified is that we can make our education system more competitive. We can make it more modern in the age of artificial intelligence. Many of our university professors are still using notes that they used in 1970. Learning must be upgraded. Learning must be at the competitive level and follow the global trend. And we hope that this will include a conscientious effort to develop capacity. Capacity not just in terms of infrastructure, but also in terms of manpower.
Absolutely. Let me start from there, actually, because I'm quite excited. We talked about one of the biggest news over the weekend, if not the biggest news, which is with regards to the by-elections that happened over the weekend and the performance of INEC. Also touched on the security successes recorded by the National Security Advisor, the Office of the National Security Advisor, including the DSS. But very critical, even though it's almost like a silent story, but very important because it underlines or underpins a lot of the things that we talk about today, which is education. We almost would suggest a state of emergency in education in Nigeria. And to hear some of the reforms that the minister is introducing, it's important, as he himself said during the media parley, to hold government to account when it comes to some of these reforms and policies to ensure that they are followed through and that the amount of money that is allocated to that sector is spent judiciously. First of all, he talks about AI, modernizing education. No-brainer there that it is quite important. In fact, a number of students in Nigeria and the education system in Nigeria cannot compete favorably with their counterparts in other parts of the world. He talked about the importance of ensuring that the teachers, when we talk about human capacity, have the equipment in the area of tablets to be able to meet this new reform, and also in the area of training, learning and development. The truth is that there are not many teachers in our institutions, in our primary institutions, who are able to interact properly with technology. And so if we're talking about our students learning or modernizing the way education is taught in Nigeria, then we must also look at the people who are responsible for passing on the education. If not, we would have a big gap in education space in Nigeria. At the moment, what we should be looking at when we talk about the human resources, number of population, our young population being one of the greatest assets we have as a nation, we should be looking at things around how can we optimize this asset. And one of the ways to do that is to catch them young. If we're not able to speak for our educational system in the nation, then we will continue to have the issues that we have around INEC, when the list or people who are not fully able to interact with technology would keep on giving us excuses as to why BVAS in 2025 is not working, why we cannot apply or be able to implement simple technology in discharging elections in Nigeria. And so a lot of the challenges that we face would be, whether tackled if only we can get our education system right in Nigeria, and we should begin to pay close attention to that. And so, congrats to the minister, but more importantly is how this will work. If the teachers themselves are able to have a mindset shift to embrace technology, because if we speak to a number of them do not even have the mental, shall I say, awareness or exposure to embrace and to see the importance of this, to be able to transmit to the students themselves. And so we'll continue to watch and hold them to account. Now, with regards to the elections, it's interesting that Mr. Bayo Ononuga has released a statement saying that, praising the outcome of the elections, especially as we've seen reports, eyewitness reports, and people who've come out to talk about how in many areas INEC has failed again to discharge an election that's credible to a very large extent. And this doesn't augur well for what we look forward to in 2027. Of course, the race is towards 2027. We're now looking towards elections in 2027. Unfortunately, this last election in only 16 constituencies does not inspire confidence in a lot of Nigerians as to how well INEC has been able to learn lessons from its past mistakes. Number one, why are we still having issues with BVAS in 2025? What is the real issue? A lot of money has been expended on this project. Who is giving an account for why it is not working, despite the amount of money and budget allocated to that particular area in terms of technology in our electoral processes? Why are people not coming in terms of consequences for actions? If we will continue to have these issues, if we continue to congratulate for an election well done because there was no violence, which is one of the lowest rungs in terms of how we are able to evaluate a successful election. Number two, it will not do well for voter apathy. If Nigerians see that elections are still conducted in the same way with a lot of incompetencies in the way it's being discharged, people will not come out to register or come out to vote during elections. And this is a fundamental issue we have when it comes to the selection or election of our leaders in different parts of the country. And so the big question for me this morning, and perhaps I'm posing to INEC, is what is the big deal? Why is it impossible or now impossible to get it right? Why must the INEC officials come or appear late to the polling stations? Why do we not have sanctions for these irregularities that are just, they're quick wins for INEC in terms of it being an institution. Why do we allocate huge budgets for election cycles and we are not able to get an excellent outcome, at least a near excellent outcome when it comes to elections? It's quite a shame. But congratulations to all the winners in the areas where it worked quite fine. Congratulations to them. But we must get to a point as a nation where we're able to have elections with little or no complaints when it comes to violence, vote buying, and of course, the employment of technology. With regards to the DSS, we often talk about when things go right or when things go wrong, we're able to hold them to account. I won't use the word criticize, but when it comes to wins, absolutely, they're able to show with examples and by naming names how much they've been able to do in the last few weeks, and that's great. We often criticize some institutions in Nigeria for perhaps putting the horse before the cart or the cart before the horse and not following through when it comes to processes, procedures, strategy. And it's great to see the DSS come out with results and be able to engage with Nigerians as to how much work they've done in the last few weeks. What we are now looking for is stability. It's not enough to mention names that have been, names of terrorist groups that have been apprehended, have been caught. It is the outcome for the Nigerian people and how safe Nigerians feel in terms of terrorism and how much terrorism has been pushed back for us as a nation. If we're not able to measure that in terms of outcome, then we'll only sing praises and yet nothing to show for it. So whilst we're saying kudos, the reward for good work is more work. And so what we encourage this morning is even more work in terms of how we actually ensure that farmers or people who are meant to go to their farm are able to go to their farm as a result of the fact that the nation is more secure. So these three tie up. By the end of the day, I pushed this morning for education. We need a close eye on that. And if we're able to sort out education as a nation, perhaps a lot of these challenges that we face in other areas, we might not see, at the end of the day.